everybody. It is quarantine day 25, and this is the evening episode. This evening, I'm going to talk about a subject that used to be very near and dear to my heart, but basically has been out of my life for about almost going on a decade now. And this is World of Warcraft, and why this is relevant will hopefully become clear. I used to play a bit of World of Warcraft. It's a very, probably the most popular online video game ever, in terms of like a game where you interact with players and usually work on the same side or sometimes fight each other. I'm going to be putting up some videos that I made back in 2007 where I was fighting other players, and just some other videos that I made back then. I had like a few months where I was just kind of in a spree of making videos, just recording stuff that I was doing in the game. So why do I bring this up? Because there was an incident in World of Warcraft that went a long way to inform us about pandemics and the movements and nature of what populations do during pandemics. Now, I'm going to do a brief background on why there was a pandemic or a pandemic-like situation in this World of Warcraft. First of all, it's kind of like an open world. So, whether you're a really strong hero or you're just at the beginning of your journey, you'd often be going to the same places, particularly like the cities, where there was an auction house where you could basically arrange trades of goods. So in this open world, you'd have these congregated centers where the populations would kind of intermingle. Cities. So what happened is that there was this disease that you got while fighting a very hard enemy, and the enemy had just come into the game. They just added this new enemy into the game, and this enemy gave a disease, and they neglected to think about one way that it came out. So some of the heroes can summon like pets. Like you'll see in some of the videos, there's like a little cat that's running around and chasing people, and it's that's my hunter's pet. And so on a pet like that, you could get a disease, and the disease was normally meant for people. It would come off of you when you left fighting the enemy, but that disease stayed on that pet. So again, you get this weird animal way of being a conveyor of the disease in the virtual world too. So somebody would like resummon their pet when they came back to the city, and then that disease would pop. And what this disease did, it was called corrupted blood, and it would make like a big spray of blood around your character, and you take damage. Now, if you're really strong, high level, the person that's supposed to be fighting this enemy, it wasn't that much. It was survivable. But if this got transferred to somebody else and it was just based on proximity, they would die. So in a sense, you can kind of think about this as what we're talking about, where there's some people who are more affected by the virus than others. Some are going to be, it's going to not be great, but they'll live, and others, it's going to be really bad. So you started to have this happen in cities, and you just have boom, 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 and like people would catch it. And, this was more of like a matter of catching it within a few seconds and then realizing you had it and that you're going to die, your character's going to die. And that's, not the biggest inconvenience in the world. It's inconvenient, but, nothing compared to real life. So people, the players, reacted to this in different ways. You know, some tried to help, some tried to assist with telling people, like, get away, get away. Some actually then tried to spread it and were very devious in their use of it. Some, you know, intentionally would start another situation by deliberately holding off their pet and then bringing them out in the middle of the city and saying, ha, here we go. And this was really interesting to a lot of scientists because it showed some different vectors, some different movements, ways that a disease could spread, because you literally had hundreds of thousands of players playing this. It might have been in the millions by that point. I think it was hundreds of thousands at that point, maybe a million. And it would take off, and there was no way to stop it, but you had this data. So my personal experience when I played, I was a fairly non-serious player for probably the first 8 months that I played, and then I got a little bit more serious. I wouldn't say that I was at all within like the top 20% of like hardcore players. I played it a bit during college. And like so I was still not fully like a strong person. This happened in like September 2005, I think. So the game had only been out a little under a year, and so by that point I was, you know, kind of maybe about halfway to the top level. And then at the top level you continue to go on harder and harder adventures, just you don't go up in level. So this disease, for me, killed me once. And the reason it killed me, I had known, so here's just kind of an interesting thing. You know, I had known that it was there in the city. I really wanted to use the auction house, and I was curious. So I went and I deliberately went to the place that I knew was dangerous. Curiosity killed the cat, and I literally walked into the front gate of the city, and then pow! It was just like, and pow, pow, pow. I started running out, and I was dead. My character died. I managed to get out, and basically spent a week social distancing, not going back to the big city, just kind of going off into the wilderness and doing my own thing. So that was just my experience with it. You know, had it been real life, of course I wouldn't have been curious. I'd probably been very much like, okay, I'm going to shelter in place. But I think the scientists were able to kind of extrapolate data from situations like my own, where, okay, he was curious, but, you know, we can maybe theoretically bring that curiosity to being something that's just in game and not real world. So why do I bring this up? I think it's a good idea to think about these things, because sometimes we can get information and solutions from areas that we really don't expect to get them from. That's number one. And number two, the scientists, the epidemiologists, they're just so needing of data, because they don't have a lot of data. It's hard to get data on how diseases spread. So if you have a situation like this with real people, even though it's not real life, it's extremely helpful to have just more data, to just see kind of like what can happen that you maybe don't think of in your models. So we have a lot of people right now who are using what happened in a video game as part of their model of what is happening now and what is really shaping our economy. again, you think about this situation. I wanted to use, part of it was I wanted to use the auction house, which is just basically the player-to-player economy, kind of like our own economy. That economy got shut down during that time. And so it was like, this need to want to keep participating in the economy can keep re-injecting the virus, the plague. So, just some thoughts. I'm sorry about the video quality. I'm sure these are not very good, high quality in terms of the resolution, but hey, it's World of Warcraft. It's proof I did play this thing. I did experience a fake epidemic before. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.